Welcome to Quest Xeon. This is Pastor Scott Conway, a man with a crazy resume who has been interviewing a woman with a much more impressive and equally crazy resume, Dr. Lisa Yeung. Now, of course, as we shared last time, Dr. Lisa is a medical doctor. She is a psychologist. She is an integrative coach. And she's been the medical director of a pandemic era clinic in the Bronx. So she's done a lot of pretty amazing things. And so when she shows up with these incredible insights, that's pretty relevant. And she was sharing with us in the last interview this idea that when you understand these sexual blueprints, even at a beginning level, as she was sharing with us what it means to be an energetic, a sensual, asexual, a kinky, and she was shared with us a little bit on the shapeshifter, that when you begin to understand this and you can go in and find any old issues that you had and that you can recover, you can heal from them. As you move forward in just the sexual element of life, you find it affects all of the other areas of life, just like everything else in the Yori relationship trust matrix. So when we talk about 100 ways to win, the reason we focus on 100 ways to win rather than starting with where we lose is because if you can get a win anywhere, that win has a tendency to ripple out to other parts of life that are affected by those principles. Now, this idea of sex energy affecting other areas of life is not new. It's not something that, Dr. Lisa is just tossing out from her training as someone who knows about sexual blueprints. If you go all the way back to Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, chapter 11 talks about sex energy and how sex energy affects success. Now, in particular, we're talking about the 1930s, and Napoleon Hill was specifically talking about men and men's sex energy, but this is much more generic because sexuality, that energy, the sex appeal that we show up with, that is so powerful in us, applies to both men and to women. And all the way back then, he was already talking about if we can take this energy and transmute it into something more powerful and productive for whatever specific goals we're after, that it is the difference between success and failure. There's a difference between drive and someone who just sort of sputters out. And that this power is incredible when it comes to success, to growing rich. And keeping in mind when Napoleon Hill's talking about Think and Grow Rich, the material wealth he's talking about as the last of a list of 12 that he gives. He begins with positive mental attitude and harmonious relationship with others. And in particular, a lot of sexual energy between men and women has a tremendous amount of impact between how gentlemen treat ladies, that they've transmuted that into a level of courtesy and dignified respect offered to ladies, that maybe tapping into that sexual nature that we have and taking that sex energy and transmuting it into something that is healthy for the particular dynamic. And so whether we're talking about how it shows up with ladies and gentlemen, how it shows up in business, how it shows up in other aspects of our relationship, understanding these sexual blueprints is enormously powerful. What Lisa and I do in the second part of the interview is we use my own report that she shared with us, the blueprint test link, so that we could go in and take the blueprint ourselves and find out what ours is. And when I took the basic blueprint, I found out that I'm a shapeshifter. When I went deeper, I found that I have a pretty solid balance of all five, which may not be a terrible surprise. But very often, if you do the test and you find out that you're dominant in one thing and you have a partner who is dominant in something else, that might explain a lot of your mismatches. That in the counseling office, I've had couples who are sitting in my office, and one of the things that the wife complained about is he would have sex every single day if I let him. And he had said, like, well, no, I'd be happy with 2 or 3 times a week. He said, that's not true. You're checking every single day. He goes, yes, because I don't want to miss my day. And she had called him a sex addict. She had considered it a problem. she had considered that there was something wrong with him because he had this drive to sort of probe every single day to see if perhaps she was available for sex. And I knew nothing about sexual blueprints back then. It was still early in my counseling career. And so I didn't really know what to do with it other than to have the discussion. And as we had the discussion, found out that if he had a couple of yeses a week, he was perfectly happy. He just didn't know which day the yeses would be on. And so he would check every day because from time to time, she would say, like, oh, I was kind of in the mood yesterday, but not today. Well, he had no way to know yesterday was the day. So he started checking every day just in case today was the day he didn't want to miss. But the sexual blueprints model, it is enormously powerful. If you know that your partner is an energetic, then you can approach your partner like you would approach an energetic. Or if you know your partner is a sensual, you know your partner is a sexual, you know your partner is a kinky, or you know your partner is a shapeshifter. And as we understand ourselves and we can understand our partners better, we can walk into our relationships in a way that's much more mutually fulfilling. And it really is very much like understanding love languages for the expression of love in our relationship. Understand personalities, which is the powerful, playful, precise, and peaceful. Understanding those personalities to help understand our partnership and how our partnership is improved if there's some variation in how we are. So then our partnership can have 3 or 4 of them instead of 1 or 2 of them. And so as we continue to move forward, we will finish our interview with Dr. Lisa and unpack my own report and see where else we go with this, and then give you an opportunity for a lot more in-depth training and some personal coaching through Dr. Lisa. So enjoy the interview. Pay attention to the end of the interview with Dr. Lisa because she is going to share some incredible opportunities with us that can make a powerful difference in the most intimate aspects of our relationships. Okay, and we have, of course, Dr. Lisa continuing. And what we're going to do right now, in the handful of minutes we have, is we will use my actual quiz results to talk about like a real live example. And so my quiz results is 21.74. I'll just do the main percentage. 21% shapeshifter, 21% kinky, 17% sexual, 21% sensual, 17% energetic, which means what?
So first I want to say, for anybody who's taken the quiz is a starting place. It's not the definitive answer for who you are, and that's that. The quiz is a starting place, and because when we take the quiz, we're answering questions and it's processing neurologically through our conscious brain. And for example, last time we talked about one of the shadows, for example, of the kinky is that there's a lot of shame around who they are. So you can imagine that someone who's taking the quiz that may actually be truly very kinky, but be afraid to admit it, even to themselves, I have people who've tested 0% kinky or 0% sexual. And then as they dive into this work, they realize, oh my God, that was just because I had so much shame around it. I couldn't even admit it to myself. So this quiz is not the end all be all. It's a starting point for you to understand. And then with working with a coach and other ways, or through the Blueprint course, you can learn how to experience it in your body on your own or with your partner to then see what is the truth in your body. And that's why this is called a somatic. So this is somatic sexology, in terms of the work is in your body, not coming through your mind, which makes sense, right? Like you're not going neurologically through your mind when you're experiencing sex or pleasure in the act of having sex. It's what your body experiences. And often the fun part is that when you go down this route of exploration, and there are different games or tools and processes that I take people through to really enhance or understand their own blueprints even more, then you start to discover things that you you had no idea you would enjoy, but you really love, right? And so it's the experiential part that's the most important part. And the quiz is just the first step in terms of getting a conscious idea of where you may be.
Well,
So I'll go ahead.
well, if I may, related to that, honestly, if I had taken this quiz while I was married, a part of me, just knowing myself, I don't know if this is true for everyone, but at least for myself, I would tend to filter my answers through good husband lover. And so if I was looking at it going, well, my wife isn't into kinky stuff, and so it's not okay for me to be into kinky stuff. And then I could have tested out, 10%, 0% in kinky because it's not okay. Or to, test as high energetic and high sensual because you're supposed to be that as a good man. And so I could totally see that happening to me. So I could see that happening, to you know, anybody I've counseled over the years, where we tend to filter it through what we think is okay. Now, I don't know even how much of these scores would show up in a long-term committed sexual relationship, because I don't have a long-term committed sexual relationship to like somatically explore it in. But given that, what do my quiz results mean?
So what I see, the first zoomed out, I'm looking at your quiz in front of me. So if I'm looking it down, that's why. You basically tested pretty closely for all of them. So there are 3 that were 21%, the other 2 were 17%. And so that sometimes when any quiz you're doing, love languages, other categories, sometimes that can be a sign of how you took the quiz, right? So sometimes answering more extreme can be helpful to differentiate. And the big picture is that what that says to me right now is that Shapeshifter is most likely your highest and most likely your predominant, because all the other ones are also testing very similarly. And it's really in the somatic experiences, the games and the exercises that we take clients through, that you can enhance that even more. And from this, it's not clear, right? So if you are someone that has tested very low, like 0% for something, then that may be something to look into. There's nothing wrong with it, but that all of this is just information. So for me, your quiz specifically, with all of the percentages very close, within 4 points of each other, most of them very similar, is that you enjoy it all. You're a shapeshifter in terms of being insatiable and enjoying every aspect of it. And the quiz will not tell you, though, if you have some things in the shadow or there are things that may need healing, and things like that. So the big picture is that you're a shapeshifter, you enjoy it all, and that you can have a lot of fun when you're having sex and experiencing pleasure, as you embrace that and give yourself permission to. And I would say that would be the same for everyone here, no matter what their top is.
Well, certainly, I'm known for drawing spectacular women into my life, of which I consider you one of them. And I'm also known for good company dating, which I would probably be an expression at the energetic level, possibly sensual, depending upon the nature of what we're doing, and not being in the kind of relationships where the sexual or the kinky has a place to show up.
Mm.
That, you know, I could somatically be exploring energetic and sensual in the relationships I do have. And what might I want to keep an eye out for if a relationship were beginning to move into the sexual arena, or possibly the kinky arena?
When you say sexual or kinky, you're saying in the blueprint, if you had a partner that was more kinky and sensual?
Yeah, or if I had a partner, how kind of seeing the shapeshifter, that the balance, how would I explore that?
Well, first would be being aware as a shapeshifter that you have this insatiable hunger and that not everyone else may be that same way. And then also recognizing your own tendencies so that you don't slip into potential shadow of negating your own needs and dismissing those and only just focusing on your partner's needs. So that would be one thing, even just for yourself, before you talk about the partner, for you to understand that, okay, I love pleasing my partner, and it's okay for me to ask for what I need too. Giving yourself permission and understanding what you need and being able to communicate that is a lot of the work we do through coaching, right? And communicating in a way, let's say communicating in a way where your partner, who may be a very different blueprint than you are, we call it speaking the blueprints, they can understand it and they're incentivized because you're talking in their language and teaching them through their languaging what you need to be pleased. Does that make sense?
It does. And in particular, kind of looking it over and listening to you, one of the things I'm kind of doing in process that Lisa and I are recording this while I'm off on my 5-month road trip. And one of the things I'm doing while I'm on my trip is I'm pre-courting. And I've been specifically waiting for the conversation before I really pre-court much in the area of sex. But part of what I'm envisioning is that the nature of the relationships I have ample place for energetic and sensual. And I could imagine if we developed an intimate love relationship in those, if say she was high energetic, high sensual, but if she was low sexual, low kinky, and not a shapeshifter, she might think, oh, we're perfectly compatible because I show up as the only part of the relationship we have or fit these elements. But then I also have these sexual and kinky needs.
Mm.
And so it might feel like we've got this great thing going, but then as we progress, that there's potential mismatches we may have to communicate about and dive into and try to understand in a deeper way and how this would show up in a particular relationship. In which case, like quizzes like this give us a great opportunity to explore ourselves and give us a launching pad with which to have conversations.
Yes.
And like you said, they're not pigeonholes.
And a concept that I want to share, it relates to what you're saying, is, like I said, we're not just one and not the others. So that's why when you take the full quiz, that is more information, because if you just think, oh, I'm shapeshifter, that's it, you're going to miss out on a lot of different aspects of yourself. With that being said, so we all have a little bit of each of them to varying degrees, percentages, right? Within us, each of them can be enhanced and strengthened. And there's a concept called stacking. So meaning there's a blueprint stack. So your primary, so let's say you were saying the example of you might have a very energetic, primary energetic partner, and perhaps that you may be able to meet her needs, but she may not, like you also have these other parts of you that need to be fed. Understanding that we all have each of the blueprints within us, and there's a stack. So your energetic partner, that may be the stack is the order in which you can access each of the blueprints. So said another way, the energetic, you may turn on and feed the energetic first with that longing, with that yearning, that space. And once the energetic of that other partner is filled, and the stack is different for everybody, then they may be able to access their sensual. And after the sensual, they may be able to then access their kinky and sexual. But if you went straight to kinky and sexual, they would have shut off. So that's another deeper, much deeper level of understanding that your partner has a stack. So if you know the order in which, and you can satisfy their energetic and then their sensual, which is the example you gave, then as that's fully fed and feeling aroused and turned on, then you can hit that sexual and kinky, and they would love it. That it's kind of like having the roadmap to your partner's pleasure. And it's your pleasure, because as a shapeshifter, you derive a lot of pleasure from your partner, right? And so understanding that, imagining that, and you can imagine the different all the infinite possibilities of all the different partners, because it's not just the one blueprint, primary blueprints, also their stack, what turns them on. And then you can access their kinky and their sexual as through their energetic and sensual as an example.
Oh, that is fantastic. And, and now, for those of you watching, the sad news is she has other stuff she has to go do because she's a very busy woman and very much in demand, and has done me the tremendous favor of joining us so that we could have this opportunity of sharing. And so, Lisa, I appreciate you being here. So, or as you know, Dr. Lisa. And so this woman is amazing in so many ways. And if you could give the URL for the blueprint exam and a way for them to get hold of you, if they're going, well, I don't want to talk to Scott, I want to talk to this other woman. She seems like she's really on top of things. So they want to talk to Dr. Lisa Yeung instead of not medical Dr. Scott Conway. How would they?
Thank you so much, Scott. So for those of you who have not taken the quiz yet, you can access the quiz, BlueprintQuiz.LisaYeung, Yeung, that's my last name, MD.com. And then there you can take either the full quiz for just the primary, or the the primary quiz, the free one, or the full one that has the detailed breakdown. And then if you want to go through, so I'm offering a special package for you guys where I can, after you take the quiz, go through the results with you, kind of like Scott and I did, and answer any questions that you have and really have it personalized and individualized to you. So I'm offering a session of that, as well as gifting you the whole entire Erotic Blueprint course, which retail is $1,000 if you go to the website. And so that as a whole package, if you're interested in that, then you can go to CALL.LisaYeung, YeungMD.com, and then you can schedule a call with me, answer a few questions, and then we can talk about what that would look like. And beyond that, if you just have a quick question you want to send over, you can just email me at lisa@lisayoungmd.com.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Lisa. I really wish we had nothing to do but have these conversations, but I know there are many, many other things going on that need time and tending. So again, thank you very much for being here. And on behalf of everyone who watches this video soon or at any point in the future, thank you.
You're so welcome.
So you can see why I was so excited to bring you Dr. Lisa, that she has this casual mastery of this material, and that with the totality of her background, being able to show up with this level of insight gives you an idea of just how enormously powerful and transformational it can be. So if you take the quiz yourself, if you seek out the individual coaching and avail yourself of the special gift that she has offered to us, that may help you move forward tremendously in the area of sexual intimacy by understanding the sexual blueprints. And of course, as we talked about, I myself am evidently a shapeshifter. And that means that I also have, well, that I also have a balance, but that my scores have a balance of the energetic and the sensual and the sexual and the kinky. And that shows up primarily as a shapeshifter. And so my numbers are pretty well balanced in there. But one of the things she talked about that is important, even for me to understand as I move forward, is that my own scoring, the way I would have answered the questions when I was with my first wife or with my second wife, may have been different, and that there could be transformation as you move forward. And in particular, in that realm of kinky, that doesn't mean like, objectively kinky, where if you were to Google kinky sex, the things you might find there, but things that have been historically taboo for you. I remember watching a television program one time when the women were talking about some of the wildest sex they've ever had. And for one of them, the wildest sex they ever had was on a Wednesday at the foot of the bed with the lights on. And that to her, that was the wildest sex because everything was usually, a missionary in the dark on a Saturday night under the covers. And so just not under the covers was kind of breaking a personal taboo. Having the lights on was breaking a personal taboo. And so the idea of kinky is like it's going over to the edges for wherever you are. And so I found that part of Dr. Lisa's talk to be personally very interesting. And so when I'm looking at my score, I'm going, kinky, huh? I was a little surprised sometimes when I was looking at my score and saying, okay, so I have like a balance of all of these. But that could also shift if I have a lover, that I tend to blend with the woman that I'm with. And so if I don't have an ongoing long-term lover, what it looks like is that my sort of default setting seems to be this balance of all of them. Now, if you find out that I've gotten married again, should I be fortunate enough that lightning has struck that third time, and now I do have a lover, it would be interesting to me to see how my scores would change. So having this particular report is an interesting baseline for me. But in similar vein, I've retaken my personality test. And so the powerful, playful, precise, and peaceful, I attempted to cultivate the precise with limited success. Unfortunately, very limited success, much more limited than I wish. As I was cultivating the peaceful, I noticed a lot of the negative aspects came along with the positive aspects. And so, similar vein, if we are cultivating certain aspects of our sexual relationship, to understand that we may have some of the shadow side beginning to show up along with the positive. But if we also already have the shadow and we can heal and recover from that shadow, we can bloom into more of the superpower of any given part. And of course, we can continue to explore and we can find new ways of expressing and new ways of filling in. I found the stuff about the energetic to be very interesting because very often I talk about the gateway where the hug's not a hug. The hug is a bid for the kiss, and the kiss isn't a kiss. The kiss is a bid for a grope, and every step is a bid for the next thing, and isn't expressing your love with a hug and expressing your love with a kiss. That it's all about just moving forward to the next thing and skipping right past the energetic and skipping right past the sensual in an effort just to jump into the sex. And then wondering why sometimes we're getting turned down at the hug and the kiss level because most often, the lady in our life is accustomed to the hug and the kiss is never a hug and a kiss. That the energetic is never really the energetic. The sensual is never really the sensual. All of it is just a gateway to be passed through as quickly as possible on the way to sex. And if you find out your partner is an energetic, then you linger there for a while. If you find that your partner is a sensual, you linger there for a while and that you let it simmer before you move on to sex. And if you find that your partner is a sex, then you know, well, quickies are probably going to be a highly desired thing. And then for the kinky of constantly exploring new realms of how to express one's sexuality. And I, for myself, found that aspect of the shapeshifter to be curious because as someone who, tested in both areas as a shapeshifter, that that might make me a reasonably skilled lover at the various aspects because if I want all of them and can do all of them and I have a partner who's primarily one or two of them, I can do those, but then I could also be starving for the ones that I'm missing because those are equally part of how I show up in an intimate relationship and being able to communicate and use the blueprint model to have that communication, just like we use the love language model to communicate how we receive love. And so then I know if you are a words affirmation lady to use a lot of words of affirmation, even if that's not really natural to me. Now, something else that I learned as I was listening to Dr. Lisa and we were unpacking some of this is the idea that all of us are a mixture of all of them And just as in love languages, we learn to communicate in other people's languages, we learn to try to hear in other people's languages, that we ebb and we flow and we blend and we continue to develop, and that we can cultivate certain aspects of this. And that as we have the blueprint model to remember that we are not pigeonholed into this. And even if we live a lot in the shadow side, it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with us. It just means that we're having a very healthy, ongoing response to what may have been an unhealthy situation in the past, or an unhealthy event or series of events in the past. And that as we heal and recover, we can blossom into this enormously powerful thing. And for that, of course, we have a 5-step forgiveness system that if you find yourself living in reaction and you would prefer to no longer be living in reaction, we have a system for that. If you're finding that you're living in reaction kind of in real time now for stuff that's going on outside of us right now, well, we have the Triple E freedom technique for that. So we have techniques, we have systems, we have things that we can do. And that as we show up, as we learn, as we develop, as we continue to grow and expand who we are, we can walk this out with the sexual blueprints and be able to have a much deeper understanding and build a much more intimate relationship with our spouses. And that our marriages can be an expression of total sexuality. Now, related to some of this in the realm of like sex and kink and whatnot, is I was attending somebody else's church, and one of the things I heard the pastor say from the platform was he suddenly got a little choked up about it, and the issue that he was talking about relevant to that was about men pressing and pressuring their wives to do things that the wives found demeaning. He wasn't specific. He knew he had children in the room too, so he was very, very vague. But in my experience, when one of us pastors says something like that from the platform, it very often means something has shown up in our counseling office relatively recently. And the fact that when I glanced up at the clock, he was going overtime, and he included that would indicate to me that that came up very recently and was raw to him. And it was an insert. It wasn't something he had initially planned as part of the sermon when he was initially crafting it. So these things happen. So if you are a sexual or you are a kinky, to not pressure someone who is a sensual or who is an energetic to have to like just jump in with both feet, and not to do it with pressure, but to build the intimacy and to build the relationship where both of you can be safe to discuss your sexuality, to discuss your sexual expression, to discuss the things that would be important to you, to be able to discuss your sexual fantasy and to be able to have a safe place to do that without shame. And remember, one of the things we're trying to do here is make sex something that we talk about, and to talk about it like it's a thing to talk about. And one of the things Dr. Lisa and I were discussing is trying to destigmatize sex, trying to destigmatize kink, trying to destigmatize shapeshifting, try to destigmatize all these things because they cut so close to the human heart, and they are such a powerful expression of that which is deepest and most intimate to us, that the better we get at this, the better we get at understanding, and the better we get at expressing, and the better we get at connecting, the more powerful our lover relationships can be, and that husbands and wives can have a whole different level of expression of their love, and it can show up in all aspects of our relationship, with the things that we discover in the bedroom. So this is Pastor Scott Conway for Quest Xeon, and I hope you've enjoyed this time, and get in touch with Dr. Lisa Yeung. The contact information, the test information has been made available for you, and we hope that this will be transformational for you.